Another tough mid-major is coming to Mackey Arena. Can Purdue knock off Kent State in their last game of 2025?
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network where it's your team every day. I am your host. I am Nick Arvin. I talk Boilermakers every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the only daily Purdue show out there. Also, write about the Boilermakers for Purdue 24/7. And we have a fun preview episode headed your way today. I hope that everyone had an amazing Christmas just like I did. But today, we're going to be talking about Kent State, the matchups there, the storylines. It's going to be a full preview about those Kent State Golden Flashes that are coming to Mackey Arena before 2026. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets now. So with that being said, let's jump right into things today, and let's talk about some of the storylines behind this Kent State team, behind where Purdue is at right now, and what the result is going to be, what it's going to mean for both of these teams. Now, when you look at Kent State, this is a team coming out of the MAC. So yes, it's not going to be Purdue's toughest opponent that they face off against all year. But we saw this. We've seen that these MAC teams this year are pretty dang good, and KenPom reflects that. We beat Akron earlier in the season at Mackey Arena, and they're right up there. I think Kent State is the second best team in the MAC in terms of KenPom. I know that Akron is almost in the 50s now, so that's honestly a great win for where Purdue's at. But Kent State, they're at about 132, which for a MAC program really isn't that bad. 10-2 on the year. Let's take a little bit of a look at their schedule. They started out the year with a 6-point loss to Troy. They get a win over Cornell, UNC Wilmington, Cleveland State, Wright State, Eastern Kentucky. They played Cleveland State again, then beat Penn State, not the actual Penn State, Shenango Nittany Lions. Then we got a win over Austin Peay, a loss to Portland, and a win over UMass. So definitely no notable wins in there, but the losses aren't bad at all. Troy is not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination, so only losing by 6 points and that being one of your two losses on the year, I think that shapes up really good for Kent State, where they're at now and where they want to be, because this is a Golden Flash team that has aspirations of making it to March Madness. If they can beat Akron in that MAC tournament, they'll be there because this is a very talented team. And we'll get into the players, the matchups here in the second segment. But let's talk about what a win here would mean for Kent State. It would be everything for that program. And I'm not saying that they're going to go in and beat Purdue at Mackey Arena. But what I am saying is that if somehow the Golden Flashes were able to pull it off, it would be one of the biggest wins in program history. And it would be a win for a program that desperately needs a marquee victory like that. And once again, I am not saying that they are going to go into Mackey Arena and beat Purdue. But what I am saying is that they absolutely have the opportunity to go into Mackey Arena and play Purdue competitively, because we've seen at times with this Boilermaker team where they'll face off against teams like a Kent State, like an Akron. We even saw it against Eastern Illinois. And at times, they come out flat, turn the ball over, don't make shots, don't get into that flow that Purdue needs to do to play their best basketball. So if you're Kent State, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to be amped up, bring all the intensity going into Mackey Arena, and just make it tough enough for Purdue, make them struggle enough so that that team is able to stick in the game. And then on the other side, if you're a Purdue fan, like I am, like I'm hoping, this Purdue team is going to give Kent State no hope, because that's kind of what you got to do when you play teams like this, is you can't give them hope. And this is an opponent where this could very well be a matchup in round one, maybe round two, because I don't see Kent State being a 15 or a 16 seed come March Madness time. But this is absolutely a team that you would see in the first couple rounds of March that could give you trouble. That's a team that you circle and say, this team could upset somebody in March. That is the way I view this Kent State team. So by no means can you overlook them. By no means can you say, hey, this is going to be an easy win. We're going to go into the new year, go into conference play with an easy win over the Golden Flashes, because that's just not the reality of the situation. Yes, Kent State, they're not the perfect team. They're not the best team, but it's a team that can be dangerous when they're on. It's a team that can make shots, and it's a team that can be extremely competitive down the wire if you don't kick them in the head early. Get them out of that game. Put your foot on the pedal and give them no space to breathe, because if not, there is a chance that Kent State is able to stick around in this game. And just taking a look at some of their numbers throughout the year. So we know all about the talent, but they shoot the ball at a very successful level, I would say. From the field, they're just under 50% at about 49.7%. That's good numbers. Those are a good shooting percentage. That's an efficiency that's going to allow you to win some games. And from three-point range, they're not too shabby either. Kent State shoots the ball at about 38.6%, which it's not the top in the nation. It's not the bottom in the nation, but it's still pretty good. And it's going to be a team where if they're shooting the three ball, well, they're going to be able to stick in that game with you. And that's my key point here, is that you can't allow this team to stick around, because that's when they're going to become dangerous. Kent State hasn't showed me quite yet that they're capable of beating a Purdue team, and I'm not saying that they're going to do that, but I do think that they are capable of beating very talented teams. And if you're a Purdue fan, you don't want to get caught on that side of things. Head coach Rob Senderoff for Kent State, he's a lot like Matt Painter in terms of he's been there forever, and he's built up an identity for Kent State. The most winningest and successful head coach in the history of Kent State. He has an identity that he's going to want to give out with these Golden Flashes, and this is a team that finds consistent success. Last year, just narrowly missing out on the tournament. They win a couple games in the NIT. This is a program with an identity. This is a program that is going to want to win games, and a program that is certainly capable of winning games against high-caliber opponents. So not for a second am I overlooking this Kent State team, and Purdue should not overlook this Kent State team either. We'll get to my predictions at the end of the show. But ultimately, if Purdue is able to play the basketball that they are capable of playing, that we've seen them play the last 3 games, I don't think Kent State has a chance. But if they don't, if there's any sliver of hope left for Kent State and Purdue doesn't play up to the standards, if they go into Mackey Arena sleepwalking after Christmas break, which is a possibility, this game gets a lot more interesting than it appears. And that's not a situation you want to be in if you're a Purdue fan. So keys for Purdue, go in hard. Foot on the gas, intensity to a 10. If you do that, if you play clean basketball, I don't think anybody can beat this Purdue team. Also, with that, you've got to limit them on offense. They can shoot the ball efficiently. If you're able to limit that 4 stops on defense, you're going to have a good chance. But ultimately, players make plays, players determine matchups, and matchups determine games. So we're going to get to that. Stick with us here. Matchups coming up next on Locked On Boilermakers. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. And with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. But it's not just for football. I love betting college basketball on FanDuel. I was a big winner in the Indy Classic against Auburn. And if you want to get in before that Kent State game, you can be a winner too. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. In our previous segment, we talked about some of the storylines going into this matchup between Purdue, Kent State. How Kent State, they want that marquee win against a high-ranked opponent, and they have the potential to definitely stay competitive. And On the other side for Purdue, the opportunity to keep the momentum going, string 4 wins together, and just say, we're not going to play down to our opponents in this game. But ultimately, it comes down to the matchups. That's the most important thing here. And before we get into those matchups, I want to tell you guys about a couple cool things. So first of all, this is my first season here on Locked On Boilermakers, and I want to say thank you so much for all the support. But if you guys are new here, if you haven't subscribed yet, we are on the chase to 1,000 subscribers. It's a huge milestone for me, and if y'all could help me get there, it would mean a ton. So thank you for that. And then number 2, the Locked On Podcast Network and Locked On Boilermakers are bringing you the Everydayer Club. I'm sure that you've heard of it by now, but essentially what that is so for $5 a month, $50 a year, you can get ad-free Locked On Boilermakers content. But that's not all. You also get access to the exclusive Discord for Locked On Boilermakers, the Everydayer Club. You can talk to me, talk to the Everydayer Club, and you'll have exclusive access to that March Madness tournament pool come that time. So great opportunity. Hope you guys get in. I'll have a link set below in the description. But with that being said, let's take a look at the matchups, what Purdue fans can expect in terms of personnel facing off against Kent State and who's going to need to step up for Purdue. So I believe, in my personal opinion, the biggest matchup here, and throughout the course of the season, I still believe that this is going to be the situation for Purdue, is going to be the way that this front court plays. And against Kent State, even more so, because they have one of the best forward/centers, whatever you want to call them, in all of mid-majors. His name is Delrecco Gillespie. So he averages about 32 minutes, plays more than anybody else for this team. But what he provides is 19.3 points per game. So far and away, their leading scorer. But that's not even the number that pops out to me. The number that pops out to me is 12.6 rebounds per game. And we talk all the time about Purdue in terms of rebounding the ball. That's so important because it gives you the opportunity to have more opportunities. With the efficiency that this Purdue offense has, offensive rebounding is so vital. And that's why a guy like Oscar Cluff has really changed the dynamic of what this team looks like, because he's improved not just his rebounding, but Trey Kaufman-Renn's as well, because all the gravity that he provides for you. So this is going to be a huge game for Oscar Cluff and Trey Kaufman-Renn, depending on who is matched up on Gillespie, because that's going to determine really the pace of this game, the physicality of this game. It's going to go down low because that's who the offense is ran through. The offense is ran through Gillespie, but he gives them so many more opportunities, averaging almost 13 rebounds a game, which is just so insane to me that Kent State has a player like that on their team. But that's why they're so successful. That's why they're so successful, because they do have a player like that, a player that can change games. And we've seen Purdue has plenty of players that can change games. But this is going to be the marquee matchup here. This is going to be the important matchup that really determines how this game is played. And I think that if Purdue is able to limit Gillespie, we saw this with JT Toppin, another dominant big man that Purdue played off against. When you're able to limit these dominant big men, it forces these teams to play through other players. And I don't know if Kent State is going to be able to play through other guys and find the success the way that they do when they play through Gillespie. So that's going to be a big key in this game, is the limited Gillespie. And for Oscar Cluff, Trey Kaufman-Renn, whoever's in that front court on him, you have to limit him. And then on the other side, great defender, so you have to still be able to find that way to score. I think with the matchup of Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Cluff, Purdue will be able to find success, but it's going to be a tough matchup, a tougher matchup than you would expect facing off against a team in Kent State. And next to Gillespie, on the other side, is Rob Whaley Jr., who is their third leading scorer, but still incredibly talented. Also listed as a forward/center, 10.4 points per game, rather, but the rebounding numbers aren't there as much for him, only averaging about 3 rebounds a game. So it's going to be important that you keep him off the bigs. Nothing happens there for Whaley Jr. because you don't expect it to. You're expecting Gillespie to get on those boards. So you just can't afford for anything to go away from how you plan it. You need that front court to assert themselves early and often. If Purdue's able to do that, I think that that's truly where Kent State is going to want to live, is in that front court on the glass. That's where they found success against teams on their level. The issue is Purdue isn't on their level. Trey Kaufman-Renn isn't on their level. And I don't mean that Kent State is better. I mean Purdue's better and significantly better. They haven't faced off against talent, physicality, like a Trey Kaufman-Renn, like an Oscar Cluff. So you've got to show them, and you've got to show them early. That's going to be a key here in this game for Purdue. Moving on, their leading guard in terms of scoring and their number 2 guy is going to be Morgan Safford. And he is pretty talented, shoots the ball just under 40% from three-point range. So not necessarily going to be the number 1 place that he goes, but still incredibly talented. He is a senior guard, 6'4", played 2 years at Wofford, then Miami at Ohio, and 2 years at Kent State. Like I said, about 15 points a game. In terms of what that backcourt is going to do, it plays through him. He's going to be that ball-dominant guy who's going to want to get down low, going to try to pass the ball inside. A lot of this offense is going to run through Safford from the guard perspective. Like I said, Kent State is going to be a team that plays through their bigs, but Safford is still someone that you have to limit in a matchup that I think CJ Cox is going to be amazing at, because we've talked all year long about how CJ Cox plays the role of being the number 1 defender out of that backcourt, being an amazing point of attack defender that can force anybody off that three-point line. I think that if Cox can guard Safford at a very high level, Purdue's going to have a good chance of shutting down this Kent State offense, because Safford, once again, is a very key part of that offense from the backcourt. And alongside him, Sion Medley is another guard where they have 4 guys that are averaging double-digit points, and then 1 guy that is averaging 9.9. But Medley at 10.4 points per game. He's going to be their guy that's going to want to pass the ball at a really high level. Leads Kent State in assists at 6.5 assists per game. I think that this is going to be the matchup for Braden Smith, where Braden goes to shine. You go back and forth. Who can pass the ball inside at a higher rate? Who can play make at a higher rate? Braden Smith and Sion Medley is going to be the matchup there in terms of those playmakers on the floor. If Braden's able to make those plays, get downhill, make efficient shots, I think the offense opens up pretty well for Purdue in this game, because I do think that Kent State, they're a solid offense. They're good for who they are in terms of being that mid-major program, but I see no way that this defense of the Golden Flashes is going to be able to keep up with this Purdue offense, because they're number 1 in KenPom, the most efficient offense in college basketball. And I just don't see the defenders right now for Purdue. But that goes back to what I said in the first segment of the show. If you're able to go in, if this Purdue team is able to go in and specifically the offense, target this Kent State team, find those vulnerabilities. And I think that it comes in the front court, not necessarily their guy that's rebounding the ball at a high level. I don't know if you're going to be able to get it through Gillespie, because averaging 2 blocks a game, he is a good rim defender. But where I circle is Rob Whaley Jr. Find that ability to space the floor, because they can't guard both Cluff and Trey Kaufman-Renn and then still limit Braden Smith, his playmaking, and then patch up Fletcher Loyer from three-point range. No team, much less Kent State, is going to be able to do that. So the matchups are very important. I think Gillespie is by far Kent State's best player, so keep it away from him. Get that offense flowing early and often. Foot on the pedal. If Purdue is able to do that, I think they have a very good opportunity to come out with a victory against this Kent State team. But what's my prediction? Who do I have winning this game, and by how much? Well, I think I gave you a little bit of a spoiler there, but definitely stick around for this final segment, because I'm giving my final reactions, final thoughts, and my predictions, and that's here next. There's nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, well, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at the checkout. But that's why the Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. But not just for college football, it's for Mackey Arena as well. And it's the only way that I get into Mackey Arena, with accessible options, with cheap tickets. It's so easy when you know how tough it is to get into Mackey, but you can get in with our friends at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying college football or basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go. Download Game Time today. It's time for me to give my final thoughts, my predictions, and figure out who's coming out of Mackey Arena with a victory before New Year's. So to kind of determine, because the line with our friends at FanDuel is not out yet. It still is pretty early, filming this on Christmas Eve. But to find out kind of what I have my line set at, I want to take a bit of a look back to Purdue versus Akron. Akron, another MAC team, right up there with Kent State, two of the best teams in the MAC conference. I think that we can determine kind of what Purdue will look like by looking at this matchup that they had against Akron, where they pulled that game out 97-79. And before I get into any of this, I want to say that Akron is, in my opinion, the best mid-major in all of the nation. This is going to be a team that, I'm saying it right now, Akron is going to beat teams in March Madness. They just are. They're going to win a first-round game. That is how talented Akron is. And they only lose to Purdue by about 18, which only, but it is a mid-major, and it was a team that was expected to lose against Purdue. And I thought that Purdue did a decent job of going into this game and starting hot because they had a 13-point lead at halftime. And I know that this has been kind of my key point, but it will continue to be my key point every game that Purdue plays against an opponent like this, because it's incredibly vital that these teams step in and they play with a lot of intensity, because you can't let your guard down. I thought against Akron, Purdue actually did a pretty good job of not letting their guard down and kind of going in hot. But come the second half was where things started to take a turn, I guess, for Purdue, because they only won that half by 5 points. Yes, there were times where I think that a bit of the bench was in, so maybe it doesn't give you the full story, but 2 complete halves for Purdue in this game. It's going to be very important into determining who is going to be the winner and by how much. So we kind of see Purdue beats Akron by 18, and maybe it wasn't their most complete game, but it was still a game where they started out strong. And with an 18-point victory, that kind of makes me think that this game against Kent State, the line should be set a little bit higher, should be set into the 20s. So that's kind of the range that I'm thinking in terms of where my prediction is going to be with this. This is a game by no means that Purdue should struggle in, but if Braden Smith, if he's able to play up to that standard, make at a high level against this Kent State defense, if he's able to get to a few shots, this team's going to have success. If CJ Cox can guard their best guards out of their backcourt, this team is going to find success. If Fletcher Loyer can make threes at an efficient enough level that gets you the win, this team is going to find success. If Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Cluff can bang down low and make life hard for Gillespie, this team is going to find success. If the bench can outplay Kent State's bench, and there's no excuse for that not to happen, because this Purdue team is as deep as any in the nation, much less compared to Kent State, you are going to find success. If Purdue does the right things right, if they play the way that they have been playing this year and the way that they should continue to play throughout the course of this season, they are going to find success. But it comes back to day one. It comes back to the offseason. It comes back to fundamentals. That is the biggest test against a team like Kent State. I don't think that Kent State can beat Purdue. I do think that Purdue can beat Purdue, and we've seen it only one game this year, and of course that was against Iowa State, not comparing that team to Kent State at all, but this Kent State team is very viable of winning a game. Maybe not against Purdue, but they're capable of winning a game against a really good team, and you hope it's not at Mackey, and you hope it's not December 29th. And with that being said, I said it would probably be about a 20-point spread that Purdue would be at. And I think that this is a game where Purdue actually does crack 100. I think that's definitely a possibility for the Boilermakers to hit. They were at 97 against Akron. I think that Akron is a considerably better defense than what Kent State is. So with that being said, I'm going to say Purdue 101, Kent State 77. So a 24-point victory for Purdue at Mackey Arena to end 2025 and to go into 2026 off of 4 huge wins in a row. Great opportunity for the Boilermakers to get it done. And for Kent State, once again, they have an opportunity to really kind of make their names known this year as they pursue greatness on their own level. So it's going to be a fun one, and I appreciate you guys tuning in for this preview on Locked On Boilermakers. Thank you for making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen today. For your second listen, make sure you check out Locked On Big Ten with Craig Sheeman. It's a great listen. Provides everything from the most exciting conference in college sports, from rivalries to the championships and everything in between. Make sure you go check out Locked On Big Ten. But with that being said, thank you guys. And as always, boiler up, hammer down.